Greetings, adventurers, and welcome back to Abnormal Voyages. My name is David, and today we find ourselves in Augusta, Georgia, at the one and only Pexcho American Dime Museum, and I am lucky enough to be here with Peter Excho himself. How are you doing today, sir?
Very good.
It was a pleasure.
Yes,
So I hear you have some awesome things for us to see.
A couple things, at least, yes.
Well, I'm excited. Let's dive right in.
Yes, sir.
We're going to a place that you've never heard of before. It's Abnormal Voyages. You're gonna learn something new. We're gonna open new doors. It's Abnormal Voyages.
So I'll press play. Dime Museum started in 1841. We were the absolute first museums in America. No other museum existed prior to the Dime Museum. And every museum you go to today in America is born out of one thing, and one thing only: us lying to you. Lying to you about the Fiji mermaid, or the turtle boy, or the alligator man. Folks are just sick and tired of being lied to for their money. They didn't want to have to read a placard on the wall. That's if they could read. This is the 1800s. Most folks didn't know how to read back then. But they just wanted to be told the truth for their money. They didn't want to have to travel the four corners of the world to get an education to know that a Fiji mermaid exists or doesn't exist, right? So that's how we get the museum up today, is us constantly lying to you to take the money from your guys' pockets and put it into ours as many times as possible throughout your visit. That was the goal: take your money. We're also one of the first forms of entertainment in America. So before the Dime Museum, what you had was husbands, wives, and children all going to work. Yes, there's no such thing as child labor law back then. Also, dad could go out at night, get drunk, and go to brothels. That was pretty much entertainment until the Dime Museum came out. And when we did come out, it was an overnight success. 3 to 4 of us within a city block sprung up. Now, they weren't as big as ours. They definitely weren't as big as P.T. Barnum's. And we all know who Barnum and Bailey is, or Barnum of Barnum and Bailey, sorry. But anyway, yes. There were smaller storefronts. You'd pay your 10 cents, you'd go in, you'd look around. They'd live in the back half or back 2/3 of the building. Your collection would be there, maybe 10, maybe 20 pieces in your collection. You would look around, you'd go to the next one, pay 10 cents, and look next, and you'd eventually end up down at Barnum's. Now, Barnum's was a 25-cent museum, but he's still classified a dime museum. But Barnum also was a 5-story building at Ann and Broadway. He had a menagerie of elephants, giraffes, and chimpanzees on the 4th floor. He had an aquarium with whales in it on the 2nd floor. Yes, it's more than large eyebrows. Running water's not in our homes. Electricity's not even invented yet. Electricity's first invented in 1888. This is 30 years prior to that. He's walking elephants up to the 4th floor for our entertainment, cutting a hole out between the 4th and 5th just to house the giraffes. The Civil War has not started yet, but he has an aquarium with whales in it on the 2nd floor. Would you like to know more about the whales?
Yes.
Okay. Create me that tank back then without the tools and technology that we have today. Just making the tank in itself would have been a feat.
Yeah.
Fill it. Just filling it with water. How do we fill our pool today? We call a fireman up, hooks a hose up to the hydrant, throws it in our pool, 3 to 4 hours later, hands you a water bill. Back then you don't have gas pumps, pneumatic pumps, electric pumps. None of these exist yet, right? We do know there's steam power, but we know for a fact Barnum did not use it because he documented these 2 special tools called hands and buckets. Yes, the bucket brigade. They had a horse-drawn carriage going back and forth from the Hudson, fill up the container, unload the container. Now get me the whale out of the ocean. Right? Now they're not big blues, they're not big grays, right? They are belugas. It's a 2,000+ pound creature bigger than our SUV. Get that safely out of the ocean. Heck, let's go hire a fisherman today and say, hey, can we go find us a beluga? And they're like, sure, come on. Wait, no computers, no sonar. Let's go find us a whale. That's what we're talking about back then. No technology whatsoever, finding us those belugas and getting them into the museum. They were finding them in Canada, and the whole train ride down from Canada, all they did was spoon water over the eyes and mouth of the creature to keep it safe and alive. And then once it got into New York City, they transferred it from the train to a flatbed horse-drawn carriage, again, no such thing as a truck, and brought it to the museum. Now, the first aquarium was in the basement, and they thought that gravity stuff would help them loading the water and loading the creature, which it did. But there's a problem with the basement. There's no windows, no circulation fan, no electric light. We had gas lamp and oil lamp back then. And they said it was hard for us to breathe, let alone a whale to breathe. So the first whale lives 2 days. Ooh. Yes, now comes the fun part, getting rid of a dead whale in New York City. Yes. So Barnum's like, no, let's get this second floor, lots of windows, lots of circulation. So now you gotta drain the tank, disassemble the tank, bring it to the second floor, reassemble the tank, clean the tank, fill it, get another whale. Now the first few whales, yes, I said few whales, they were figuring out that saltwater fish didn't live very long in fresh water. Yes. So the problem in itself wasn't necessarily the air, but it was the water. Barnum and his team of men were the first folks to bring exotic animals into America. No one has done it yet. There is no such thing as a zoo yet. Our zoological societies were just starting at this time, but no one has brought these animals in. No one had no idea how to take care of a rhinoceros or a hippo or a chimpanzee. They were like, oof, all right, get another one. Oof, get another one, right? And they had to do this over and over, trial and error, to be able to keep these animals alive. Now, when Barnum died for the second time, his building burned down. That's when he called it quits. That's when the zoological societies really start going, and they did come to his team of men for all the knowledge that they amassed in their trial and error of trying to keep these animals happy and alive. So, we're sidetracking. Let's get back to our whales. So they figured out the problem was the water. So what does Barnum do? He petitions the state of New York to run a pipeline from the ocean to his museum, and he gets it. So he solved his water problem, and he did this for 9 whales. Yes, he had an aquarium with whales in it on the second floor. So Barnum had anywhere from 10 to 20 performers a day throughout the museum. Now, they didn't perform in a theater this big, on a stage this big. He even had a 3,000-seat theater. They didn't perform on that one either. They had a smaller stage like this, short like that, a little 2x2 square. A guy like me would take you from gallery to gallery, show you some artifacts, introduce you to a performer, and then move on. Now, a performer back then wasn't necessarily the sword swallower or the bearded lady or the Siamese twins, but it was someone giving you a lecture on how to grow a better crop of corn, someone giving you a lecture on history or science or math, right? These were classified performers back then, keeping in mind only those rich, fancy folks could go to that school thing and get that edumacation stuff, right? Yeah. So when the working class person found out they could come to the Dime Museum and get an education, they literally came by the tens of thousands. Barnum made over $1 million a year on quarters alone. Wow. No, let's put that in today's money, right? That's $34.5 million a year is what he would make if he were open today. Yes, that's quite a good business. So a lot starts happening in the growth of entertainment at the end of the 1800s going into the 1900s. We have burlesque and vaudeville start at this time. The telephone and phonograph are now invented. Baseball starts at this time. But most importantly, movies. When the movie palaces or movie houses opened up, there was nothing the Dime Museum could do to compete against it. And as a matter of fact, movies premiered in our theaters. But we're greedy. We'd charge you a door fee and a movie fee. Had we not been so greedy, there might be more than me on the face of the earth right now. That's how rare of a museum we are. We are the only one that exists, period. So, the Dime Museum died in 1920. We were dead and gone. So a few of us tried to preserve it throughout history, but we've all failed. So yes, we are dead and gone 1920. So let's go back in time to 1913. This guy started doing these single panel cartoons of sports heroes and stopped drawing those and went on to draw Oddities, Freaks, and Oddities items. The same little one panel cartoon for the paper. Then he showed his first collection of oddities at the Chicago World's Fair in 1933. You might know him, he's doing very well. That's him right there. His name is Robert Ripley. And he has this great little tagline, believe it or not, all my stuff's real, I'm not a dime museum. So we die in 1920. He comes in 1933, 13 years later. He literally goes to our failing collections, takes out the Fiji mermaid and turtle boy and says, it's all real. Believe it or not. And why do we believe him? Because he tells us to, right? It's like those businesses say, low prices. World's best burger. It's not the lowest prices, it's not the best burger, but we believe them. Or not. So on that note, let's go look at some real fake stuff. One of the things that was funny on this right here, and I ask that when you do see it, you tell no one about it. This is a one-time feeling in your entire life. It's physically impossible to look at these artifacts twice in your life and get the same feeling. So I'd rather your friends and loved ones experience it here and not on the computer or at home. So now what are these? These are rare spotted cubular eggs. When we think of a cube as an ice cube, how the heck is a bird giving birth to a cubular anything? Now, we did have those visitors in from Australia just last week. A wombat poops cubular poop. Yes. So if a creature can poop, why can one not give birth to it? Correct?
No?
So I'll read the story and then you can come on up and take a peek. Rare spotted cubular eggs. These rare birds will nest in the strangest of places, most commonly found in basements and garages. And the key to the survival of this species of bird is the overwhelming amounts of cigar smoke, coupled with excessive levels of whiskey, not to omit the cheap beer. It was also pertinent for the absence of the female except for breeding, and the bird does migrate seasonally to the Nevada region. So now you've paid your nickel. Come on up and take a peek.
Well, after hearing about that, I gotta check it out. Well, I've seen them, and I gotta say, that is one of a kind. Okay, so what is this?
This is a hippo's foot.
Oh, wow.
So you're more than welcome to hold this.
Wow.
Again, this is the only thing you're allowed to touch.
It's the only thing, well, you gotta make it worth it then,
That's
right? Get all your
How many
touches in.
times you can hold a hippo's foot, or alive or dead.
Say you can shake his hand. You can, I'd say, high five the hippo. There we go.
So if you notice, it's cut up the palm and then up the ankle, and that's how you would take it off of the muscle and the bones. Just peel it off that way. The same is true for a shrunken head. You cut up the back of the head, pull the skin off that way, and then start your shrinking process from there.
Wow.
Yes. So
I've never wondered that before, but now I know.
now the cards throughout the museum, those are cabinet cards. They're not just photos. So me being the owner of the museum, I share some of the proceeds from the front door with the performers, but the card that they sell themselves, the cabinet card, I take none of the sale of that card. It goes all to the performer themselves.
So people, whoever their favorites were, could purchase a card of...
collector card. Yeah,
Nice.
So we have piles of them. Again, we just don't have the square footage to put them all out.
Sure. That could be an exhibit all of its own, I'm sure.
Yes,
Just,
it could. They're
yeah.
amazing. They're beautiful. And you see all the performers at that time and throughout the time. So, yep. Now this is a wedding bracelet on top. They were really popular in the late 1800s all the way up to 1920s. They had to outlaw the wear of it because they loved wearing it and having it that much. Only 3 museums have this in their collection right now on the face of the earth. The one's the Metropolitan, one's the Brooklyn, and one is us. Only one of them has theirs on display, and I'll give you a guess.
The Metropolitan, right?
Correct. And you would be amazed at how many folks do guess the Brooklyn. More Brooklyn than anything else. And then their wife or husband's like,
Sweetheart.
right here, now it would have been fixed permanently on her wrist or
Okay.
her ankle. So once you got married, a jeweler would put, or a smith would put it on you for life.
Wow.
They go to the grave. That's why there's not many of them out there, right? And again, that's why only 3 museums have in their collection. Everyone else has them in private collections.
That definitely takes puts a new take on the whole ball and chain concept.
Well, the thing is why they got outlawed is in the 1920s. It's because they looked too much like a slave bracelet, and they didn't want that, and they wanted to get rid of that part of that history. But people still they wanted to wear it. And then we get a lot of folks in here. They're like, "I would never wear that." I'm like, "You're wearing it right now."
I was about to say, yeah, your ring.
Wedding ring. Yes, it's not as convenient to put it on your nightstand, right? It's on you permanently, but still, it's the same concept, right?
Yeah.
But yes. So now we are a smarter, faster, stronger adult than an 1800s adult.
Yeah.
All of us have an education. All of us have gone to school. So I had to figure a way to mess with you guys. So when I sat down to write my cards, I made up facts that you'd believe are real but that are fake. Then I researched facts that you'd believe are fake but that are real, to throw in a conundrum yourself. And when we were researching moles, those guys right there, we found out that they were a solitary creature. And when 2 males met up, they'd fight ferociously. And if a male and female met up, they'd court each other, fall in love, have babies, and then separate. And we know for a fact those 2 right there are not males. And how do we know they're not males?
I bought them a couple of drinks. I don't know. What did
They
you...
don't have boxing gloves.
Oh, my gosh.
Yes. And that they have picnic baskets, and they must be getting ready to court each other and fall in love. So if you do find yourself smiling or laughing at all today, which I think you've done a couple times already, then I've succeeded at being one of the first forms of entertainment in America.
There you go.
Yes. Did you have sea monkeys as a kid?
Yeah, of course.
Did you?
Yeah.
Did yours grow this big?
No, mine never quite made it to that stage.
So that's what happens when you love, nurture, and feed them a lot. They grow this big. So
I guess I failed.
Yes, a lot of people have said that theirs have never grown that big. So
I would have been in trouble because my case had a lot of them in there. If they got that big, I don't know what I would have done.
now, in the Dime Museum, we would never tell you if something's real or fake or what we call a gaff, G-A-F-F. You would have to be world traveled. You would have to be knowledgeable. Today, we're going to cheat. I'm going to tell you about 3 pieces in our collection that are real or fake or what we call a gaff. The rest of it, you have to believe what I'm telling you is real or be world traveled and knowledgeable.
Fair enough.
Now, the question you have to ask yourself now is, how much has this man lied to me? Already.
None,
yes,
right?
Exactly.
It's all true.
This first set here of artifacts, those are unicorns. Those are born that way, they live that way, they die that way. Those are not modified in any way, shape, or form.
Okay.
Yes. So the guy behind you here, now the other 2 are later on in the collection. This guy here, this is the 2nd largest rat on the face of the earth. He is the Nutra rat. His bounty has just gone up on him from $5 a tail to $6 a tail.
Wow.
So every tail you bring into the wildlife and fisheries or game warden in Mississippi or Louisiana, you get $6 now. So
I've heard some people make a career out of hunting those guys.
no, I mean yes, and it's good meat too. It's good eating. So I mean they eat all the root system of the swamp.
Okay.
And so that's why they're a nuisance species, really. In Mom's backyard, they're just running around. So, yeah. I know, it's great. This is Jenny Hanifer.
Okay.
Now, we don't know how she gets her name, whether it's a grandma or a mom or a daughter or a loved one, but we know how and why she's made. She's made by sailors that can't sail anymore. They either get too old to go out to sea or get hurt out at sea. So they would catch these skates, cut them up, dry them, and then sell them to tourists on the docks as sea demons and sea devils.
Wow.
The Weekly World Globe, you know that newspaper?
Yeah, Bat Boy.
Yes, okay. So, it's digital now. You can't buy the paper anymore.
Which is a shame.
It is, it's horrible. But she was just recently billed as an alien that walks among us. Yes.
Okay.
We don't care about sea devils or sea creatures now, we care about aliens, right? And when I seen it, I was just like, this is beautiful, right? This is as beautiful as it gets.
I agree.
Yes. So now in the larger dime museums on the upper floors, you could have been treated by a doctor.
Okay.
Yeah, today we call them quacks. Now this was not a sport for poor people. This was only a sport for wealthy people, all right? So now keeping in mind also, electricity has not been in America yet for 100 years. We became all electrified as a nation in 1950.
Okay.
So we could celebrate 100 years of electricity come 2050. Yeah.
Sure, it'll be a big party.
29 years from now, we go, woohoo, we've had electricity this whole... We don't have internet in all of America yet. It's not there. Why? What's the excuse? Right? So let's go back in time to the birth of electricity, and let's go into your doctor's office.
Okay.
And he turns the machine on like that. It's ultraviolet light. You'd rub your hands and feet on it, and you would be cured. Now, I've had a couple visitors in here, usually older women, and they say they're selling it on what's that? QVC.
Okay, all right, the home shopping network stuff.
They sell a small battery-powered one, and you rub it on you, and it gets rid of your fat.
Oh.
Yes.
I got to pick one of those up then, get rid of some of these pounds.
So this one here, I had no idea we were using it today until visitors like yourself came in. We've had a few chiropractors in town that use this. There are people getting facials done by this. There was a couple of guys came in from Savannah. He was paying $236 a week to get a facial done by this. Yes.
Okay.
And so when I turned this on, his boyfriend was like, I told you it wasn't real. So it does the same thing today as it did back then. Nothing but take your money. So at a lower voltage, she'll hum on you.
Okay.
So if you'd like a treatment, you can
Sure. All right.
But at a higher voltage where she has a better performance, she'll throw a half-inch spark to you. You can have that treatment too if you want.
Wow. Ooh, you feel that, yeah.
But I'm okay with the people at the birth of electricity getting juked for their money. Right? I really am.
Yeah.
Because you had to be an electrician or a scientist to know what this is doing. There's no excuse today. And then when people say, oh, no, and then they go, oh, no. And then I'm like, why? Why did you trust them? And their answer is, they're professionals.
Oh.
They have a degree.
Oh.
They would never lie to you to take your money.
No, never. Too much integrity.
And so, when I found out we were juking people, I like immediately called my lawyer. I'm like, how? How can we legally do this? How can they legally sell that today? And then he says, well, they're using the words might or could, not can and will.
Wow.
Yes, and I'm like, oh.
So just those one-word loopholes there.
But then I go, well, how do they go to sleep at night? Really, how do they go to sleep at night? And the answer usually is big fluffy bed, big fluffy pillow, large bank account, right? And then I'm like, their parents didn't teach them this way. Right? The parents didn't teach him to be this greedy. How did this happen? Right? I mean, seriously, it does nothing.
They're just swindling people to get shocked a little bit.
Correct. And, well, you know, if you have children with you here today, I'll turn this one on, right? And this is the same thing. Right? It's the same concept, less voltage, right?
And nobody would ever think like, oh, this is curing me.
Correct. Right? It's a kid's toy. But they will think a modern, it's not, don't look like that, it's a lot cleaner, a lot smaller, a lot smoother, right? That it would be juking you, right? You know, for your money.
So anybody out there is getting electrocuted with one of those, sorry, but now you know.
Yes. So this is what folks say is the more macabre or the sicker side of our museum.
Now, some items they have here are just too wild, too extreme, too amazing to put here online. So you got to come see them in person, and I highly recommend you do.
Pepperoni. Do you know where pepperoni comes from?
I have no idea. I guess a pig?
Well, correct. They take some pig, put it in here. They take some cow, put it in here. They take some chicken, put it in here. And then you grind it up. And then after you grind it up, it feeds into the intestines of another animal.
Okay.
I personally don't believe that. I think it comes from this guy right here, Pepperonius weaselus. And the way you get the pepperoni out, you gotta sneak up on him, whack him on his head, and you pull the fur off, and then you got a piece of pepperoni, and you slice it extra thin, depending on how you like your pepperoni. So that's how I think pepperoni is made.
I like that one a lot better.
And then Vienna sausages, those little ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, they use a grinder like this. So that's our peanut head moth. He is born that way, he lives that way, he dies that way. He is not modified in any way, shape, or form. That is the second artifact we will tell you about that is real or fake. That one is real. So this is a piece from Mark Kosh's collection. This is a pauper's coffin. Now, a pauper was a person that was so poor they literally couldn't afford a pot to pee in.
Okay.
So the pauper family didn't have a coffin to display. So the local coffin makers of the towns would make them a beautiful coffin, bring it to the home, put the body in it in the parlor or their bedroom, wherever they wanted the body on display, sits in it for 3 days. At the end of the third day, take the body out, wrap it, put it in the ground, and this coffin right here would go to the next pauper's house.
Oh, so it was like renting a coffin.
No, it wasn't rent. It was free.
Oh, so it was a service.
Yes, it was just something they felt they should do to their fellow man, right, is to help them out because they're too poor.
That's
right?
nice.
So didn't charge a penny for it, right? Now we have a lot of funeral home folks that do visit us, and they're like, we rent them today for people that want to be cremated, but still be on display. So the body sits in the coffin, or today casket, not coffin, and sits for 3 days. At the end of the third day, the body gets taken out, cremated, and then the innards of today's casket gets destroyed, right, with the body when they put all new innards, but you still got all the juju on the metal.
Of
right?
course,
like
yeah.
Fiberglass, you know. Do you know the difference between a coffin and a casket?
What?
That would be a no. A coffin has 6 sides. A casket has 4. Right, the rectangle versus the.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's our only difference. Now we do have a body inside it. Today you won't see him, unfortunately. He was born different.
Okay.
And when he was young, his family threw him to the streets and disowned him. So he had to fend for himself. And they say he lived to be in his 30s. And they found him dead on the streets. They preserved the body, called the family. And the family's like, we didn't care about him when he was alive. We don't care about him when he's dead. So they're like, well, you kind of owe us a bill. And they're like, we didn't tell you to do anything. Find your money elsewhere. So the funeral home sold this body
Oh.
to a traveling sideshow. And it traveled around on display, making money off of him, because he's a natural-born freak where I'm a man-made freak. Right? I wasn't born this way. I know that's hard to believe, right? So he was born different. And so he got into a collector before Mark, which made him up with a coffin, and then Mark had him, and now I have him. I will have a funeral for him. I will have a true freak or sideshow person's funeral for him. I don't know if you've ever been to one.
No.
You should go. Figure a way to get on that list.
Okay.
You'll never be entertained and laugh so hard in your entire life. It's basically all of us trying to one-up each other.
That sounds awesome.
Oh no, it's super great. Like, Johnny Fox died, King of Swords, just a few years back. Me and the kids went up to Annapolis for his funeral, and we brought Red up. And on stage, we had 16 sword swallowers swallowing a combination of 21 swords.
Wow.
21 gun salute, right? And, you know, comedians, sleight of hand musicians, you name it, was on the stage performing, right? So then after he dies, shortly later, a year after, Ward Hall, the king of sideshow, dies, so we went down to Gibsonton, Florida for his funeral. They had a monkey there. My kids played with the monkey, you know, with the monkey grinder, and again, fire breathers, still waters, you name it, just craziness, right? And so as we leave that one, my kids are like, Dad, when's the next funeral? It's so much fun. And I'm just like, calm down, someone will die, dude, give it time, you know. So they have blast. So that's where you get the fun in funeral.
There you go.
And so we will have him a traditional sideshow funeral, or an odd person's funeral. Daytime will be a family-friendly funeral, no blood, no burlesque, none of the crazy sideshow, but as soon as the sun goes down, it'll get the bloodier side of sideshow and burlesque and craziness that he would enjoy. So,
Well, that sounds like something we might have to come back for.
yes. So this is some of our prehistoric pieces here. Up top, we do have proof the woolly mammoth was an ocean creature and eventually evolved into a land creature. He lost his rear fin and grew legs. Up front here, we do have some dinosaur poo. And we know it's dinosaur poo because we tasted it.
Oh.
Yes. So now, taste is very important when collecting. I don't know if you collect or not, or are going to collect, but you're young enough to start collecting today. Taste is important, and we found this out the hard way. We collect pre-Columbian kids' toys. They're little clay whistles.
Okay.
And so we always fight who's going to play with the whistle first. Well, my son won the coin toss, so he puts it to his mouth. He's like, Dad, and this is like when he was 4. He's like, Dad, it doesn't taste right. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, it doesn't taste right. So I was like, all right, let's see. So I grabbed the whistle, and I always have a pin on my shirt, took it off, scratched it, sure enough, bright white clay. We didn't start making fakes to the 50s or 60s because there's no need to make a fake, right? Now, you can't go into an antique store or an auction house and scratch the bottom of a clay whistle. You will have just bought it.
Sure.
But you can do this. Hey, look over there. Stick it to your tongue. Think of it this way. Cook fish in your home. It destroys your home for days.
Yeah.
But now I have a piece of clay or porcelain, a fossil. Tens of thousands of years in the ground, right? It does have a, as my son would say, a Pacific taste. I can make that turd. I can make that shape. I can make that size. I can make that weight. I can make that color. I cannot fake the taste. Our paints and clays taste totally different than even, you know, pre-Columbian whistles are thousands of years old. That clay and paint tastes totally different than today's paint. So taste is very important when collecting, right?
Yeah.
And again, why would you taste it? This is when provenance is lacking. What is provenance? It's proof of who owns it, where they lived, how long they owned it. That's what gives a piece its value, right? So as far as you can trace that lineage back on that piece, it now gets higher and higher in value. Most pieces are, I got it from some old lady at an estate sale, right? Like this piece. I got this from an old lady at an estate sale. I thought it was ebony wood. It's got the weight, it's got the feel, it's got the color, right? I didn't taste it because it was a couple dollars. I didn't care. I didn't have my glasses on. Get back here. I was like, oh, come on. My kids didn't look at it. It's got a crack in it. It's made of plastic. It is a fake. There are tons and tons of fakes out there. Now, if this would have been expensive as an ebony piece, I would have done that. I would have known right away it was plastic, right? Instantly known that, right? And I would have done no damage to the piece.
Right, so they wouldn't be like, oh, guess you own that now.
Yes, exactly. And that's how you can do that, and then still, but you still have to have a piece of ebony to know what it tastes like. Or pre-Columbian whistle. Or a fossil, right? Or a turd.
Something to compare.
Correct. You have to know the taste before. It all moves different on your tongue. Bone, wood, clay, porcelain, glass. It all moves different as the feel, right? As the fake won't have that.
Interesting.
Oh, yes. So, and it's, again, there's that taste thing. I don't want you tasting.
So there you go, yeah.
This is the world's largest species of moth, the Atlas moth. And if you notice, the tips of the wings look like snake heads. So, yes, it's a really cool piece. Now, this is the third and final piece in our collection. Then we'll tell you about this real or fake, or what we call a gaff. This is a Homer Tate. Homer Tate made his gaffs from his wife's hair. Any teeth or bones he found in the desert. He would also take the sand from the desert and mix it with the local hardware store glues. And that one's billed as a pygmy mummy. So a year ago-ish, they brought up a bunch of deep sea creatures. Did you see those?
I don't think so, no.
The human teeth one and the weird human.
Yes.
I was so mad that they ruined a perfectly good gaff of Dolphin Boy. I'm like, oh, the real fish exists. How about that? You know, wonderful. We got a fish with teeth. You know, let's go. You have no idea. I was like, are you kidding me right now? And I was like, all right, what else is going to be real? A jackalope? You know, just like I was furious.
Wait, jackalopes aren't real?
Yes, I know. No, yes, they are. I don't know. It's like Lobster Boy. Right? Today, when we show you Lobster Boy, you want to know, is this real? Well, yes, it is real. It's really there.
It's right in front of you.
Yes. And if it fell on your foot, it would really hurt. And both of those classified as being real, right? Today we don't care about an unknown sculptor that makes a piece like that. What we care is, did Austin Rodin make it? And if he did, what period was it? What other pieces did he make? Was he married? Right? That's what's important about a piece like that, not that it's made by some unknown sculptor. You know, and that to me is the crazy part of what the museum we've moved into.
Yeah.
From what we were. So.
All right.
So have a seat. So now, Barnum had a problem with folks staying too long. Can't understand why. So, and he had to figure a way to get these people out. So keep in mind, we didn't work 5 days and get 2 days off, or work 4 days and get 3 days off. We literally worked weeks and then got a day or two off. So you would go to the museum and spend your entire day off there. Barnum had 3 full restaurants in his museum. He had tens of thousands of pieces on display at any given time. Again, he had the menagerie, the performers, the aquarium. He even hired private security to escort out any drunk or unruly men in the museum. Alcoholism was absolutely horrible in America at this time, and the last thing he wanted to do is remind the women and children of what was happening at home. Now keep in mind, men, well, they've always had their places to do what they do: play cards, be entertained, gamble. Women and children had nothing until the Dime Museum, entertainment-wise, and he didn't want to upset or lose that visitor, so he did get those guys out of there. But they were staying too long. So he came up with a campaign called the egress. You'd pay your 25 cents, you'd follow the signs this way to the new exhibit, the egress. It would take you through the entire museum, then out the back door in the back alley, and you're like, I must have missed it. So you go back around, you pay your 25 cents again, following the same signs, same path, same back door, same back. Like, what the heck? So you go back to the ticket booth and you say, excuse me, sir, we've paid to see this exhibit twice, this new exhibit, the egress. We're not going to pay again. Could you just take us to it, or at least tell us how to get to the exhibit? Well, sir, ma'am, you've seen it twice already today. You're like, no, we haven't seen it twice. Yes, you have. It's the exit in French. And again, this is how we get the museum up today, is us constantly lying to you to take the money from your guys' pockets, put it into ours as many times as possible. Again, that was the goal, is to take your money.
Well, that's all the time we have for today, adventurers. Mr. Echo, thank you so much for having us.
Sir, no, thank you guys.
Well, thanks for tagging along. We'll see you next time.